Ooh.
Hello and good evening and welcome back to Talking Your Walk. And tonight's guest has done so much for refugees that have been coming into the UK. And this all started with a trip to Cali, but I'm sure Amanda Jones will be able to tell us much more about that. So just saying hello and welcome, and thanks for joining me tonight, Amanda.
Hello, yeah. Thanks, Jayne. Thanks for asking me. I'm really...
Oh, you're welcome. I'm just fascinated. So tell me, where were you born and brought up?
Well, I was born in Aberystwyth. My mum was a trainee nurse. My dad was a accountant, training as an accountant in the uni, I think. Something like that. Or we'd just left uni, I can't remember now. And he had a hot dog stand on the beach and they met. And voila, me and my sister occurred. So I was born in Aberystwyth, but actually I was brought up in Redditch. So we didn't live in Aberystwyth ever.
Okay, so Redditch. So did you go to school in Redditch, or, you know, how long were you there for?
I was in Redditch in an area called Hunt End until I was 8. So I went to school in a place called Harry Taylor First School. And then my dad got a job in Italy. So he whisked us all off. I left everything I knew behind and we started afresh in Milan. And
wow, what age were you?
So I was 8 and then I came back when I was 12. So
that's 4 years. I mean,
yeah.
That must have been, do you still remember that move, or is that a distant memory now? Or
wow, I remember it a lot actually. I'm not great on memories, but I remember how much it changed my life, because to have your world suddenly opened up like that. And I went to an American school it was an international school, but it was still American, but there was about 32 nationalities in there. And it was a really lovely school. It was very expensive. The company paid for it, but it showed me what was possible. It had an amazing progressive way of teaching, no uniforms, only positive feedback, really. You really struggled to get, they didn't put any marks on your paper that were negative. And I instantly excelled in everything. I was straight A's, straight B's, in every class you could think of, gymnastics, choirs, sports. I was involved in everything, brownies. And I don't know how my life would have gone if I'd have stayed in that school, because everybody went on to things like Swiss finishing school and stuff like that. But instead, I got brought back to Redditch and dumped in a dive in a place called Ashwood Bank, where my grades went straight back down to C's and D's and horrible things. I did not succeed in school. I came out with 1 GCSE. So that just shows you what a change of attitude can do, what a change of approach. I wasn't used to seeing a page full of red marks all over my schoolwork saying you did that wrong, you did that wrong, you did that wrong. Oh, it was depressing. So yeah, but I still muddled through. I came out with 1 GCSE, grade C. But hey, it hasn't really bothered my life that much.
So you've left school. So what did you do? Get into a job or go to further education?
Well, I started working really when I was 13 in a little village pub. It was called Inkborough, and the village had 2 pubs in it, the Bull and the Bull's Head, and it was where the Archers was based. So we had a lot of Archers, tourists coming and stuff. So I very quickly was in the world of adults and alcohol and being bubbly and, personable. And I never stopped working in pubs for about 9 years actually, and I really enjoyed those 9 years. And then when I stopped enjoying it, like I do with everything, I moved on to the next thing. So I was in the pub industry really. I went back to college and I got some more GCSEs. I ended up with 7 C's. Whoop. But nothing to really write home to. So yeah, and then I did a couple of A-level courses and dropped out of them because I just am not Mrs. Academia. Much as I loved all the lessons, I never used to do the homework, got no self-discipline. So,
I mean, you've done your years in the pub, you left, and then what did you go on to do?
Well, my dad pulled another one And he began an organisation within his company. He started to develop Magneti Marelli, which was in Telford, a massive collaboration between some Japanese company and Magneti Marelli. And so he project managed that. So we had to move up here. So at the age of 18, and my sister was 16, we came up to Shrewsbury, and I came reluctantly because it meant I left all my friends behind, but I tried to go independent and couldn't quite do it in time. So I came to Shrewsbury, and I think I was ready to leave home anyway. So I moved out at 18, and I was at college full-time doing psychology, sociology, A-levels. And I ended up working in Burger King from 6 at night till 2 in the morning, and then going to college in the morning. And I lived in a house with 2 of my friends and 3 of our boyfriends. And guess which one lost? The college lost. So I escaped Burger King eventually, but that was through pregnancy. So that's all right. It was as good a reason as any to get out of there. So then I had a little boy, Luke, who you met once when you did Reiki for us, and he's now 27. And so that was my, crazy. So I did Burger King, and I did parenthood for a while, and I did a computer company. I went back into work in pubs and partied hard for a while, and then decided I had enough and decided I needed to do something meaningful. And I think it was in 2000 or 99 I started working with children with disabilities, and that was really the beginning of my career with children and people with extra needs. I've been around a bit, June. It could be a very long interview if I told you all the places I've worked. But just to cut it short, it was children with disabilities in lots of different circumstances, and then kids in the care system. Did a little stint as a social work assistant.
So how did you enjoy that period? Because I would imagine that some of these children were quite demanding and had been really hurt at some level. So how did you feel working with them?
I loved it. I relished it. They, have this, the reason I came to get my Reiki done with you was because I was having this incredible feeling in my hands, like an itchy, irritating feeling that I couldn't get rid of. And the only thing that would stop it was if I was actually touching a child. That sounds really weird, doesn't it? But people with need, not just children, but I just have this nurturing, healing thing about me, and I need to be of use. And so it felt like I was in the exact right place. I went to RNIB Condover, where they had these like really severe children with disabilities, all sorts of sensory disabilities as well as physical disabilities. So I was kind of put in the deep end, and I was put straight with the big kids that had high level autism, no speech, violent behaviour. They all had some kind of visual impairment, otherwise they wouldn't have been there. But it was a real baptism of fire, lots of restraining. But I soon learned that these kids just needed somebody that they felt safe with. And I picked up straight away that they could pick up energy like that. And kids with autism still magnetize towards me. They just do. So I saw a different side to kids that some people didn't see, and I really bonded very closely with some people that nobody else could get near. And I loved it. But I wanted to work with a more diverse group in a bigger organisation. So I went to work in Sevendale School after about a year, where again, I went straight into the units where it had the bigger kids with the behaviour issues, and usually high up on the autistic spectrum. And I found I had very, very little problems. Okay, you had to gently guide people occasionally, but I used to be about enabling, facilitating their development. And I would rather chase a kid around the playground so they can't do damage on someone than have any kind of form of restraint put in place. Because Sometimes, not always. Sometimes children were in wheelchairs when I didn't really feel they needed to be. So I would be the one that would unleash them, much against everybody's agreement. I would do it anyway. And I think it worked well. They developed, they trusted me. And I wasn't very popular in that classroom because I used to do things that other people didn't agree with, but I still stand by what I did. I was all about giving those kids freedom and choice and guidance rather than sticking them in a wheelchair and doing stuff for myself.
I think
I'm trying to be careful here, but I'm not sure anybody will ever see it. But it's still. I've always been a bit controversial, June. I will do things from my heart rather than what people tell me to do most of the time. And it's
I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think, as you say, you were giving those children a chance when maybe no one.
It was an unhealthy culture at the time. Yeah. I think it's different. I know it's different now. My sister works there now. It's all changed. This was 20 years ago. So the attitudes towards children with disabilities has changed a lot now.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So what got you to the stage where you ended up doing a bit of a convoy or journey to Cali?
Yeah, well, I had there was a bit of a gap between working in Sevendale, and I did a couple of years in the social work children with disabilities team, so that gave me a good grounding on what goes on in social services. And then I moved away to Warwick for a couple of years, but I still worked with children with disabilities, and I worked on agencies and with children in the care system, so I got to see all that. I got to deputy level in one organisation, so I got to learn all of the paperwork side of things. And when I look back on my life, it's as if everything I've ever done has lined me up for this role. And so I've got bits of experience that have served me well. I'm confident in areas that other people wouldn't be confident in. So what happened basically, the long and short of it, I was in my last full-time job before I did it was as a deputy in a care company. And I left it because I wanted a child. I wanted another kid with my new husband. And I knew that was not the right environment to get pregnant in, because it was a lot of heavy handling and restraints and late nights and no sleep and all that stuff. So I left that job on purpose and did some nice gentle care work jobs, working with older people and adults with disabilities. And I got pregnant within a year. And then I found myself with a 2-year-old when all of the stuff was on television about Syria. And I was at home, so I had a bit of time on my hands. And I just remember, you grow up watching war on the telly and you don't really pay much attention to it when you're younger. You've got too much other things going on. It's too far away. It's another country. You can switch off. You can go, oh, they're not like me. I don't know. It's a subconscious thing. You don't consciously think these things, but that's why most of the time people can sit and look at the telly and not do anything about anything, because they have this distance between themselves or they think, what can I do? What's the point? But there was something about a particular footage that just moved me. And I'm a very energy sensitive person. I felt energy coming in around me and absorbed me when I saw all these families walking down a motorway in Europe. It was probably Germany or something. Old people, people in wheelchairs, children, toddlers the same age as my little one, Harvey. I couldn't believe that there wasn't people stopping and giving them a lift or opening up a door and saying, come and stay here, bring your kids in here. I just couldn't believe it. And when I found out that they were being blocked at Calais, and I looked into that and I saw the footage of what people were living like in absolute knee-deep mud, squalor, families, all, children, people that were in their 80s, no sort of, it was just everybody there. No dignity, no safety, no security, no future, no hope. Oh my God, I was enraged and I had to do something. So I decided the only thing I could do, because of my pub background and my lifestyle, I needed a lot of of artists and musicians a lot. And I just thought, well, what can I do? And I just thought, I know I can do a fundraiser. We can get some people on board. So it took me a little bit of time, but we managed to hire out the Loopy Shrew. And I think we had 3 bands and an auction and a raffle. And, do you know, I found out that there was so many people that felt like me. I just felt like someone had to do something. So I did the fundraiser and it was packed. It was great. And we raised about £3,500. And I had just started a little sort of Facebook group with my friends of who was interested. There was about 30 of them. And within a couple of weeks, there was 100, and then there was a couple of more people. And that group is still going now, Shropshire Supports Refugees group. There's over 1,000 people in it now. But what I've done is I've tried to make sure that they're all friends of friends of friends of friends, or people that I try and vet a little bit to make sure they're very friendly for refugees. So I did the fundraiser, and then I said, who wants to come to Calais? And my friend Anita and my son and his girlfriend at the time said, yeah, we'll do it. And we decided we were going to buy a caravan and take it down and fill it with stuff. And I had a lot of cash. So we bought, I think it was Millets, gave me about £2,500 worth of camping equipment for about 700 quid. So I filled up my car with that stuff. I bought a caravan, and then, like, the universe just happens. I was getting contacted by people. I didn't know where they'd heard from me or how they'd heard about me. Somebody said, do you mind if there's a WI down in St Albans? Do you mind if they do up your caravan before it goes down? I was like, no, it's brilliant. I'd bought quite a dilapidated caravan. So, so basically me and my son and his girlfriend and Anita, we drove down to St Albans with the caravan, which I'd never done before either. So that was all a bit scary, but it's so weird. I had this kind of energy just carrying me, doing things I'd never done before, just carrying me through. And I took it down there, and we ended up on like Women's Institute magazine or something. And we left it with them, and we carried on down to Calais, and I'd managed to make contact with somebody in the camp. Am I rambling? Sorry.
No, I'm fascinated.
I'd done a lot of research, and I got in touch with the 2 charities that were working down there that I knew of. And they were very kind of, well, you know, if you come down, you can stay in the warehouse and sort clothes. And I was like, maybe not. So I didn't fancy that much. So I managed to find somebody that was in the middle of the women and children's and families area, an amazing woman called Alice. I can't remember her last name. She was only young, she was in her 20s, and she just set up this yurt in the middle of this camp. And all the kids would go there. There was a log burner going, and it always had a pot of like ginger and lemon on it for health reasons. And she would just accept random sort of loads of fruit and vegetables and food, or deliveries of aid. And they would just queue up, and she would just dish it out. And she just wanted somewhere safe for the teenagers and the kids without parents to go. And so they hung out there. And so what happened that weekend was my son and his girlfriend ended up dishing out aid for Alice. And me and my friend Anita drove around Calais in circles. Like, it was just comedic, because I'd never driven in a foreign country before. Maybe done a few roundabouts the wrong way. And we spent a small fortune in Carrefour. They were reaping it in. So we just bought anything Alice wanted, and it was like batteries, milk, fruit, veg, you know, anything that was needed at the time. And we spent all the rest of the cash that way. But my God, I tell you what, that was life-changing. Going somewhere like that and knowing how people can be treated by other people, how disregarded they can be, how humanity could treat humanity. Like, at the time, the police would gas the camp every other night. They would throw tear gas into the camp randomly, even in the family area. And what they did was there was a tent for children somebody had set up, and they were collecting all these gas canisters and just filling them with seeds and gravel and decorating them up as instruments and toys for the children. I've got one with me, and it just always reminds me how fully grown adults can tear gas children. Oh my God, it was awful. So when we were there, Alice introduced me to a family who were living in a caravan, one birth caravan, 2 families living in it. And they were from Afghanistan. And when I went in there, there was a kid with disabilities, and he needed a wheelchair, but he didn't have one. So he hadn't left for 2 months, this caravan. And he had learning difficulties as well. So I just went around finding him wheelchairs, toys, clothes, and bought a whole bunch of stuff for them. And all they could do was try and give me eggs and things that they had. They were so generous. They were lovely. And so I decided it was them that were going to get the caravan when it was done up. So when I came back, I told the guys who it was, how to find them. And then they sent me a video of the caravan going in. And honestly, they had farrow and ball painted the inside. They'd turned the toilet into a beautiful bedroom. It was white linen everywhere. It was outside, they'd painted it with light blue and sort of dots on it. And that sounds awful, but it looked really lovely. And I called it Harvey's Gift. So this family were able to have a caravan of their own, and it was lovely. Anybody would have liked to live in that. And that was it. Never heard any more. And then a couple of weeks or maybe a month or so afterwards, the police basically burnt it down, and the whole of the jungle was dispersed. Everything we'd done and everything everyone else had done, there was tons of organizations around the country trying to get aid to these guys, because basically the French government didn't want to know anything about it. And it was just being run from grassroots organizations like mine, just doing the job, just getting it done, facing the hostile police, some of them living in that camp day in, day out. I'm still in awe of what those guys do. And there's still people down there now looking after the thousands of people that are still there, and it's building up again. And in Dunkirk as well. They totally and utterly sacrifice their lives for these people. But there's, most of them, I'd say, from England. I know there's a French organisation called L'Auberge de Migrants, and they help. But there's a lot of British people. A lot of aid comes from Britain, and it still does. So it's been an amazing journey. I immersed myself in it, and nearly sent myself mad. So I gave myself all sorts of syndromes, but it was worth it. So. Yeah,
you were passionate, weren't you? In all your posts, you could see and feel that passion from you. So you come back. That sort of then inspired you to start the Shropshire Supports Refugees, and
Sorry, I interrupted you. I don't think I started it. I think I came back and thought, oh God, what do I do now? Like, I couldn't believe that I was just going to go back to normal life after that. I felt like I'd been run over by a lorry, and I was expected to carry on as if nothing was happening 20 miles off the coast of Britain. It wouldn't happen. It would not happen in this country. If those people turned up, they wouldn't be allowed to live like that. But obviously we're an island, aren't we? So we still get about 1,000 to 2,000 people a year coming over on boat, but really it's nothing. So I just felt really depressed for a couple of months and just really flat, and I just didn't know what I could do. I suppose I could have started up just doing aid, but I was very lucky. I got a phone call from someone in the council who had heard about me through someone who works in the council. I don't know if I should mention the name, because then she'll know it's all her fault, but she's lovely. And she said she was obviously on the cross-party refugee resettlement board that they'd put together. I didn't even know we were getting any in Shrewsbury. So I got a phone call from her at the time. Her name's Ruth Horton. She was the service manager for adults at the time. And she said, look, we've heard that you went down to Calais, and we're looking for someone to support refugee action. who are resettling refugees in the county, they look for people that would run welcome groups. So we wondered if you would be prepared to do that. And I was like, yes, finally something I can do from my home in England. I couldn't wait. And at the time I thought it was just going to be a small collection of stuff for the 3 families coming to Shrewsbury. So there'd already been 5 families that came in June to Oswestry, but I didn't know anything about that. And there was a lady called Jules Payne at the time who was doing their welcome group. And so I got involved in the August with the 3 families coming to Shrewsbury. And I did the same thing. I did a little sort of group message to my friends, who wants to do this with me? And I had about, I don't know, maybe it was the same 30 people, but there was about 30 people that started it. And that was the original Shropshire Supports Refugees group. And so we collected stuff, and I met people that I'd never met before that weren't in my circles, that were just really keen to help. And I was overwhelmed with the stuff, the quality of the stuff, because I mean, Shropshire's quite a wealthy county, really. And there's a lot of middle class people that just wanted to help. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And it just, for me, I just thought, why should they have to come and struggle once they get here? You know, what are the things that I would want if I arrived in a new country with nothing but a suitcase? So we collected toys and household goods and clothes. But I also did a welcome hamper with all Shropshire goods in it, because I just thought it was a nice friendly gesture to say, look, welcome to this county. This is what we make here, you know, oats and flour and all those types of things, cheeses and things. I've found out since that they were like, what is that? And then they didn't even know what to do with half the stuff. It didn't occur to me that they wouldn't know what it was. And one of the most consistent supporters is Blue Lemon, and they gave us toiletries and things every single time the families have arrived. They've done it every single time. And I did hear a story once that some man put face cream on his bread because he thought it was butter or cheese or something, and I slightly forgot to let them know what things were. But it was an exciting thing to do. I never ever dreamt it would turn into what it has turned into. And I guess that's what happens when you just follow your heart and the energy and the passion, and you just go with it with blind faith that it's going to get you. It's not even going to get you somewhere, that it's just the right thing to do at the time. And I've kind of tried to do that for the last 4 or 5 years, really. It gets harder, gets trickier. But so they had the welcome hampers, and then I realized they weren't getting TVs or anything electrical. And I just thought, how can you survive in this country without a TV? I know it's awful, but you do need one, especially if you want to learn English. Like, I learned Italian almost fluently just from watching television for 6 months in Italy. I know I was young, but so I thought, right, let's do a fundraiser. So I raised money and we got them all TVs, and I had some money spare. And I remember asking them if they wanted anything else, and they were like, oh yeah, we need meat grinders for our food, because the way we cook our food, they use, and they have halal meat, so they don't get like ready minced meat, they have to get it whole. And then they grind it up. And they use pressure cookers in their cooking, and they use deep fat fryers a lot. And I just thought, why not? Why not? They deserve it. They've had everything taken away from them. They don't have anything in the world. They had houses, they had jobs, they had businesses, they had families, they had everything taken off them. Why not spoil them and let them have everything we've got and more? And so I did more fundraisers. I think I did a dress sale where I got everyone to send in their beautiful dresses, and I washed them all, and we did this holistic stuff as well in Palmer's Cafe. Anyway, eventually they all had their TVs and their pressure cookers and their everything they wanted, basically. And stuff I couldn't buy, I would get secondhand. So, or they would want different furniture, so I'd find myself getting them furniture and things. But I thought it was only going to be 3 families, and then I had to do it again the next time, and then again the next time, and then again the next time, and again the next time. So every time you do fundraisers, as you probably know, it gets a bit harder. But I'm a woman of my word, and I try and be fair. So I will continue to do that for anyone coming through my resettlement scheme, and help them to get what we appreciate and the things that we value. And as a mum, you just want to be able to cook the food your family are used to. You want to, you know, stay in touch with friends and family. So the TVs were smart TVs, so they could get on the internet and stuff. So that's kind of how I ended up with the model.
As you say, they've had everything taken away from them, including their dignity. And then you've got the fear factor, where they've been probably scared out their life because of bombs or fighting or whatever the scenario was, stuff that we couldn't even begin to comprehend, really.
Trauma of a level that this county wasn't ready for, really. I mean, I'm sure there are people that are from war-torn countries here anyway, but, you know, somehow they've kept a low profile, and they've managed, I don't know for sure, but there is a small number of people here from Iraq and places like that were here before. And, you know, one of my directors is a Syrian. She came over here a long time ago, maybe 9-10 years ago, and before the war, really. And so she's got family back there, and, you know, I don't know how we can ever compare, really. I know people are traumatized in England. It's a different type of trauma. There's not a good, bad, or a better or a not better trauma, but war trauma is quite unique. I mean, some of the stories that I've heard and the research that I did, you know, when I was looking up about it, I wanted to make sure I knew everything I could possibly know about the situation, what these people have been through, what they will be dealing with when they get here. I traumatized myself vicariously. And so between working with kids in the care system, where I had a couple of incidents which really probably traumatized me, but I didn't realize, add on top of that about 2 years of immersing myself in the world of being a refugee, the things I've seen on the internet, I would never, ever be able to unsee. And so I've ended up having to get psychotherapy, and I've got a condition that I think is fibromyalgia. That's what they said it was. I've looked into that. It's vagus nerve trauma or dysfunction. And I put that down to my work life, my, you know, and just being devastated at the stuff I could see what human beings could do to each other, horrible stuff. So I wouldn't advise anyone to go down that route. It's a bit like method acting. Oh my God. So you're helping a refugee become a refugee, see what they've been through. And no, it doesn't help anybody really, you know. So, but it gave me a really, really good idea. And in the times when I've had to pull on my compassion and empathy, it's been really helpful, because, you know, you can't imagine what these guys have been through. So yeah, that was, I made myself stop looking at those videos about 18 months to 2 years ago, because I realized it wasn't going to improve my work. It wasn't going to improve my health. It wasn't going to make what I do any better. But, you know, I'm already an empathetic person, so it's hard to just totally detach from that. So I spend a lot of my time now trying to like strike a balance between work and my health. It's a bit of a full-time job. So, but yeah.
So now your charity is still working with those families, isn't it, and trying to help the ones that are left behind as well, and keeping the ones that are here in touch with those. Because I mean, and people here in this country now should realise what it's like not to be able to see the people you love.
Absolutely.
This should be bringing it back to some people, how some of the refugees have felt when they've not been able to see the people that they love, and sometimes not even know if they're still alive because of what's been happening in another country. So, you know, you know, people here could maybe empathise with the not seeing your family.
Yeah, absolutely.
The circumstances are a lot different, of course, but you know, that feeling would still be pretty much the same, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, some of them knew the situation they were leaving their families in, and the guilt that they must have felt, and the survivor's guilt that they have. And, you know, obviously living over there now, whether you're in the camps or whether you're still in Syria, it's extortionate. People can't afford to buy bread over there. The camps are worse than being in Syria. I've been told that by all of them. They're treated like dirt. They have barely enough food, barely enough water, no medication, no medical assistance. They're living in tents. Some of them had houses, but they were like, you know, as basic as you get, sort of breeze block, square things. They're basically survival some of them were in those camps for 4 or 5 years before they came. So it was every day just trying to survive, trying not to get killed, trying to eat enough, trying to get enough water. People sell their kidneys and children and, you know, anything. It's desperate over there. There was something like 10,000 children kidnapped in Turkey camps alone, having their organs removed, and then either surviving it and being passed back to their families, or just not surviving it. It's still going on now, all the time. That's how bad it is. And that's in Turkey, where we gave them 6 billion euros or something to look after refugees. Basically, they're just paid to keep them out of our way, and they treat them like absolute squalor. So that is replicated now all around Europe. The camps are the most inhumane places you would not leave an animal. And there are people still living in those things. Some of the islands in Greece, shocking. I don't even know why. Well, I do know why. There's no footage of it. It's the most, it's such a humanitarian assault. It's vile. And, you know, I'm linked in on Facebook with about 300 grassroots groups in England that feed those camps in Europe with stuff and food and medication, and we all try and help each other out. They are so busy and so active. There's a massive network across this country. So somebody will do a fundraiser, or somebody will do a collection, and then we'll pass it down through the country. It will get to where it needs to get to. Everyone's doing that for free. And I'm one of the very few people that get funded from the council or the government to do what they do. Most of them are just basically begging and doing fundraisers all the time to try and support the families out there. So there's some amazing people in this country. But yeah, and so these families are here, but they're not out of the war. They are still 100% immersed in that war. They watch it on the telly. They hear about it. They speak to their family and friends every day that are in it. You know, we had a stress management course put on by Caroline Rawlings. When they first arrived, I did a 12-week session at the Wildlife Trust, where the parents got educated upstairs, the kids got entertained by artists and workshops. And Caroline did a 6-week stress management sort of course with the women. And one of the women said that she was busy telling her sister how to do breathing techniques whilst the bombing was going on outside her window. So, you know, we were passing that down and they were passing it on. Can you imagine that? You're on the phone to your sister and there's bombs going on, and you've already lost most of your family and friends. Some of the stories I'll never tell because they're so horrific, what these guys have been through. So they get here, and a lot of them were told back in the camps that they would be able to bring their family and friends over here, well, their family over here within 6 months, by someone who denies it. Everyone denies it, but everyone who comes over here says the same thing. Because I don't think many families would come over if they thought they'd never see their family again for 5 or 6 years or longer. So they're told little white lies, and then they come here, they're disappointed because they realise that they're not going to be able to see their family, and they're not going to be able to bring them over, and they can't understand why. And they're like, we'll pay for the flight, we'll look after them in our house, they don't need benefits, we'll look after my mum. And they're told, no, you're not allowed, and you can't go back either, you know. So it's just that, yes, they're safe, yes, their children are safe, but the rest of their family and everyone they know isn't. So how can you ever really be happy and ever really settle properly knowing that? So it's an ongoing, the trauma is ongoing, and their issues are ongoing. But, you know, a lot of them have done amazingly well to settle down. They've started businesses, they've got jobs, they've had more babies, they've settled in their homes, they've often moved homes as well. But behind them, they've got this backstory of just sheer devastation and trauma and sadness. So yeah, we all got a little glimpse of it in recent times, like you said, but I don't think you can ever really compare it. But it does make you realise what they must be going through.
Just the sort of missing seeing your family. You know, I know I've some people who were getting really upset because they hadn't seen their parents, elderly parents, or, you know, things like that. So maybe those people can empathise with the refugees who have got that on a more permanent basis, and
many,
the fear factor.
Yeah, many of them have lost parents since they've come here because the parents have died from either natural causes or cancer, or something awful's happened. They've been bombed or something, you know. So yeah, you can never really think it's over, really. And of course, you know all about what trauma does to the mind and the body, and just for them to be able to get up and go to work and that like regular people, to me, is a miracle. I don't know how they do it. So I'm in awe of them, really. They're strong characters.
Yeah, and I suppose as well they're trying their best, aren't they, to bring their children up without that fear that they've maybe had to experience in their lives through the bombing and everything else. They don't want that for their children, so they're going to try their best to make a life for them that, you know, many of their fellow countrymen probably can't enjoy because they're still in the camps.
Yeah, they've only come here for their children. You know, you've got a choice. You either never see your parents again, or you give your children a fresh start in a safe country. So they've always had that hard decision to make. You know, they'll never see some of their parents again. I mean, I'm hoping they will do eventually, but I don't think this country's got any plans to reunite families. They've made it as hard as possible. So we do everything we can to try and find out about that. There's isolated times when families are reunited, but they're so few and far between, and it probably involves a little bit of backhanding back in the camps. We don't know how it happens, but sometimes it happens, and sometimes, most of the times, it doesn't. So for the first couple of years, that was a big priority for the families until they realised that they just weren't going to be able to do that. So sometimes they've been able to go and visit families and friends in, say, Germany or somewhere. If relatives have gone to Europe, they can fly within Europe. But no, it's horrible. So we've made a really, really crappy situation just a little bit better than it could have been. That's how I see it. We'll never be a replacement for their friends and family, but we try our best to be supportive. So that's why I sent people to their homes, volunteers, to be befrienders and help them get around, help them learn a bit of English, be friends with them, show, you know, help them out with letters and sometimes translating stuff. I just wanted to, part of me wanted them to be cushioned with a group of people that were there for them, so that should they get hostility and racism or people being mean, they had to come through us first, that kind of thing. You know, I wanted the families to have friendly faces, to know that how many people were out there supporting them in this county. I wanted them to know how many people care, so that if they did get the odd bit of racism or hostility, they'll know that's not the majority. They already know that. These families have been very lucky to know that. So even though they might have had incidents since, they've been like a tiny, tiny percentage, because the rest of it has been harnessed, and I've shown them how much people care. So I feel like that was enough, you know, that was good enough on its own, really. But everything else has just developed from there. And now we're just this like fully comprehensive, legit service, which has been quite a sort of a transition. I'm still transitioning. So we're not a charity, we're a CIC, but we are turning into a charity at the moment. We're in the process of it. So yeah, lots. It's been a really steep learning curve, going from just a little tribe of hippie mates being nice to being a fully fledged resettlement service that gets grants and hopefully will carry on to resettle future people in the county. So
I know, I think you're doing great work.
oh.
So if people want to are watching this and maybe want to get involved or find out more about what you're doing, how do they get in contact with you? Do you have a website or a Facebook page?
Yeah, we have a website, but it's under construction at the moment. We've had one that sort of tidied us by, but now we're moving to a charity status. I want it to be a much more sort of functioning website. So we're having that redone at the moment. I wouldn't bother going to have a look at that. But the way to find us is on Facebook. So I've got the closed group that I talked about is called Shropshire Supports Refugees, and you can ask to join. And in there, that's where I will ask for help. I'll do fundraisers everywhere, but I often ask for fundraisers in there first because I know people care. The only thing is with a closed group is that you only get to see as many posts dependent on how many times you look at it. So I think there's a massive chunk of people that just don't get. When I think about it, I'm probably in about, I don't know, hundreds of groups, but I never see posts from them. So it's all about checking in and seeing, and then you'll get my posts. We also have a page, which I use to promote other people's projects, and that's an open page. And we've recently started a YouTube channel called Shropshire Refugee Week, which Nikki Holmes made for us because Refugee Week had to go online. So that's where any artists, musicians, creative people can post their gestures and their support. So it could be a story, a poem, it could be a song, it could be a video, a film, it could be anything. And that's where our platform is for that. And we've just started another YouTube channel, which is more aimed at the refugees themselves, with ESOL and mental health support and things like that. So people can check out our stuff on there. I've also started a page on Facebook for the lockdown for the parents to give their kids things to do and activities and stuff. So that's called Ideas and Assistance, Solidarity, I don't know. People can post stuff on there.
Yeah.
But really Facebook and Instagram, we've got a new Instagram account I've handed over to a wonderful woman called Sophie Davis, and she's doing a lot of that for me. We're also starting a newsletter. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
So we're trying to move into more platforms, but really my phone number's out there for everyone to see. You can find me on Facebook. You can email me at amanda.jones@shropshiresupportsrefugees.co.uk. If anybody offers help to the council, it gets forwarded to me. So if you contact the council about it, you'll find me eventually. All roads lead to me. So if you want to offer help in the way of volunteering, sharing your skills, your talents as an artist or a teacher or an educator or anyone, if you want to share your services, if you want to give discounts, if you want to give them opportunities for jobs, businesses, come to us. If you want to befriend a family, come to us. If you want to donate stuff, come to us. I'm just open. Anyone who wants to do anything to support refugees can come, and I'll try and facilitate it. So if families ask me for things, I usually put it in the closed group, and then people can say, yeah, I've got one of those, or I can help there, or whatever it is. And then if people have got something to offer, they usually contact me on the page, and then I put it on the page. And then if it's specifically for the families, although there are quite a few families in the group as well, I will post it in the WhatsApp groups where I directly communicate with them.
Oh, no, that's great. Oh, well, what a journey.
Yeah. So we're looking now to turn into a charity. We want to be able to offer our services to people that are not just from the Syrian resettlement scheme. So we're looking at anybody from a third country, or not even just third country nationals. Anyone who is not from this country who needs support, I would like to be able to offer them as much support as possible. So we're doing things like going for little grants to work with the Europeans that are about to need to fill out a form to stay or leave by the end of July. So we'll hopefully get that. I'd like to, once we're a charity, it will open up opportunities to get grants to work with maybe asylum seekers or people that are not paperless, people that aren't refugees yet or are waiting for their status to be, waiting for their leave to remain. I'm very passionate about preventing exploitation and trafficking and modern day slavery, which is on the rise in this country. There's thousands, like they reckoned about 30,000 people at the moment living in modern day slavery in this country, and it's happening in Shropshire. It is linked in very, very closely with county lines. So I'm on the board of anti-slavery and trafficking. I'm linked in with West Mercia Police. I'm now linked in with all of the sort of safeguarding organisations. And underneath everything I do is this drive to protect people that are vulnerable to exploitation, including our families, you know, and exploitation and slavery and trafficking. So who knows where the future is going to lead to, but what I'm going to do is just make sure we've got a really robust charity that can cope with all of that stuff within the county, really. So there's so much going on behind the scenes. Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It just sounds, you know, I've got to admire you for what you're achieving. I think it's amazing. I really do.
And I've got to thank you, June, because all the little mental health support stuff that you do online and things like that, it's the stuff that keeps me going. I've got to keep myself in balance to be able to do all this. So I just like reach out at any opportunity to do the mindfulness, the meditation, the self-awareness, all that stuff. And you've been interviewing really fascinating people recently and doing some webinars and all that sort of stuff. You know, it's keeping me afloat. So fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. Take care. All the best. And I'll put all the links up with the website as well. Okay, thank you. Take care.